Before we get into a quick introduction about myself, my name is Chris Conger. I work for Recruiting Pro Software. I've worked for them since 2014, currently the Director of Development. Our company's been around for over 25 years now. I'm sure many of you guys know Paul Costanzo. He's the founder of our company. And many probably know Vanessa. She's an integral part of our team as well. You can see here, this is my work setup. We were showing work setups before, but I do walk on the treadmill every day while I'm programming. And that's kind of my standard day. I usually walk somewhere between 15 and 20 miles a day. Not walk during the meeting, otherwise I will be bouncing up and down the entire time. You'll all get nauseous. So that's real quick about us here. So toaster alerts. So a couple of years ago at Pause, New Orleans, Mike Burgess gave a really nice talk about using Suite Alert within FileMaker, a Suite Alert style, using cards and creating this Suite Alert type style as a dialogue. I thought it was really cool. We implemented some of it with us, and it was, I really think it's a nice look for our users. And I guess I should kind of go back to why I think these type of things are important. Nowadays in FileMaker, it's not just a single solution. You're integrating with all kinds of different software packages and different solutions, usually within FileMaker, and your customers, I think it's important they see the same type of look and feel that they see in their other applications and the level of polish that they see in their other applications. You don't want the FileMaker solution that you build to look like the ugly stepchild of them. So we try to do the best we can to make a polished finish for our users. And these Suite Alerts was one of those ways that we could get a pretty nice finish. And then we started using better forms about a year and a half ago. And I know we brought Charles in. I don't know if he's on the call. He had said he was going to be on the call, but maybe he got hung up. But we brought Charles in to CAFTA, I don't know, maybe a year ago. I'm not quite sure when he came in, sometime during the summer. And to kind of demo some of the stuff of better forms. But the one thing that I really took from it is I like these alerts. I think Charles phrases it well. These alerts are handy for telling a user when something's a little important, but not important enough to use them more. I was going to point out, Charles, if he was on the call, his spelling here. But I really enjoy them. They're very unobtrusive to a user, but yet they still give them the feedback they want. And so then here is the Bootstrap thing. I'm not sure Charles is using the full Bootstrap toast alerts, but you can see there's all kinds of different options that you can set in, different components that you can set in. So then I started looking at just Googling different styles of toast alerts, and some of them are really nice, all kinds of different ones that you can see. And when I was going through them, this one kind of caught my eye, this toaster one, for the fact of the alerts are the alerts, but for the fact of this control panel that you have to kind of test the alerts. It was the best one I saw in terms of testing stuff and seeing stuff, how stuff works. So let me, I'm going to cut this out here and refresh it, because I found last night when I was actually going to here, the developers have a little sense of humor. So the first couple default ones are kind of a little cruel, but it's kind of funny the way that they had some fun with the ones that they had programmed in. But if we put a title in here, we're able to put it in. You can move it around to wherever you want, different locations, things along those lines. So I thought that was really cool how they, clear them before you. I thought it was really cool just how they gave this control panel to all their different options and how they were able to set everything up. So then I really liked it. I thought it was cool. I had no idea what I was going to do with it in terms of FileMaker. Came across this one too. This one's really nice. Just a little snack bar type thing. I think this is more of the Android material design type look. But you can see the different styles that they have here too. Just very unobtrusive alerts for the end user to use. And then, ironically, it was Sline. I was just going through their blog and saw this and saw this file, and Maka posted, and I don't know Maka. I've seen her present to DevCon. She does really nice stuff. So I downloaded the file, and I'm not sure if Maka came up with the file or if Ross came up with the file, but I'll open it up here. Let me switch screens here to my I have to stop sharing to switch. I think it's 1 second here. I'll come back and share again. All right, now you should be able to see a FileMaker screen with the Recruiting Pro logo on it. Yeah, okay. But Maka came, I saw this when I opened it up, and all of a sudden this popped out. And I was like, oh, that's clever, really nice. I thought, okay, we can do some stuff with this. Opened up the file real quick, like we always do. Haven't even looked at the actual purpose of the file, just saw it and thought, okay, we can do some nice stuff with that. So let me turn on our demo. Okay, so then I tried to emulate kind of what she did. First attempt, it works. Works well. I like it. Gives me the unobtrusive nature that I was looking for. I can click away from it. I can move it around this. Oh, this one I added a title bar in. Could set the different locales of where we're doing, add some icons, kind of adding a little polish, trying to make it look a little bit more like the toaster look, where you could have different controls. Whoa, what was that? I'll have to do some checking on that, but I can get it to come in from the top, show a couple different things along those lines. You saw this one, I was able to add some buttons in here, different style, different icon, different things that we can do. You can see here that there's a close button on by default, but I can have a setting where I don't want the close button to show, and that on this toast example, that is one of the options here, whether or not you want the close button on or off. So there I want it on, or no, I don't want it on, so now it's not showing there. So I thought those things were pretty cool, how they were all working together. I added this do not show. This do not show, which some of the purposes of these alerts would be maybe when they go to a certain layout and you've added new features that you want the user to see just a list of what's been added to it. So until they click the do not show, this alert will continue to show up over and over. Or maybe on login or something, so it continues to show over and over. Then, so that's kind of where it ended, and I thought it was going to be effective for us. We built and I'll show you kind of what we built similar to Toaster in a minute. And then I presented for the Pause group a couple weeks ago, and some great feedback, and I'd appreciate any feedback people can give now. But Michael Lane came afterwards, did his own little snack bar style. I was like, oh, that's cool. We can add that in pretty simple, just adding another item to it. And then, so then I did the same thing, started moving that around, seeing how we could control it, different things that we could do with the snack bar, see how it works in terms of different things, entering from the top with an icon. And then show the bottom right. Oh, I can just go through these all real quick. It's the same alerts that you're seeing before. And then show the bottom, show the bottom left. Let's see that again. Looks like I got to do a little bit of cleaning up there on a couple of things. But you get the idea. So at that point, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then John Sindelar was like, well, in Dayback, we like full screen alerts. Specifically, he liked them at the bottom. But so I was like, so we worked on adding this in and trying to get these all to position the right way was quite a challenge. Some limitations in FileMaker that I wasn't aware of. And these are actually, well, I'll get into the mechanics in a little bit. I'll come back to why these end up being a little bit of a challenge. But I really do see the value in these full screen ones too. I think they look really nice and are kind of clean. So real quickly into the very top level of things here. All we do is, let's do this so we're not so distracted by all these things. We'll hide all these and we'll get rid of these just to trim things down here. All we're doing is there's just a popover that pops up, and you know what, I'm going to turn back on these because these will be valuable. And let's just show just this item. I know all that. Okay. So all we're doing is, you can see we're opening up a popover. That popover in it has a slide control, which I'm going to have to show. Has a slider in it. And let's look at the names, because the names will give it all away for you. So we have the slider right toaster, that empty panel, empty right, enter right, empty panel, enter left. So if it's coming in from the right side, we're just going to enter on this particular panel, that's the enter right, and then turn on the navigation, or turn on the animation, and then it will, when I go to the second panel, it gets that slide in effect because of how the order of the panels, the way they're set up. If I'm coming in on the left-hand side over here, when I actually open the popover, I open it by going to this object. And then when I want to go to the full screen one, I would go to this object, which gives me the animation sliding in from the left. And then if I want to do, and this is how easy it was to add the single line, that's our single line toaster alert. So it's pretty, the mechanics of it were really simple. And that's one of the things I loved about it. I love things that look great, but are fairly simple to do. And as we were going through it and discussing it internally, Paul made a comment that one of our clients, oh, he'd love to be able to send these alerts to his workers. Initially, I had thought of this as being just kind of for developers, similar to the way that we do like our custom dialogues, where we just have, oops, let me turn on the scripts here. We just have a script that we call and populate it with a couple different variables. It gives us our custom dialogue look, and I'll show you one of those later on here. You can put a couple different icons in, put the title, put the message, however we want. Really simple to do as a developer, rather than using the FileMaker show custom dialogue, which personally on Windows is incredibly ugly. I don't know how people may feel differently. I think on iOS it looks great, but on, and this just gives us a little more control to where it shows up. So I started going down that path, only to realize that to get all these type of options, it is substantially more. And so we still do have, so if I go back in my scripts, we still do have that. Let's do, to give you an idea of what it is, these are all the settings that you need to set. And so initially I just started writing a script with all the different settings so I could do testing. And I realized very quickly that this was going to be a lot larger challenge to do it through scripting. So I had to build some sort of UI, and that's when I flashed back to the toaster thing. I'm like, man, if I could build something like this that could handle it, that would be exactly what I'm looking for. So one thing, so I'm going to go to our alerts here, and I'll just open one up here. And you can see we have this whole UI now that we can build stuff. I can change the style of it. I can change the icon, whatever I want to do, different things along those lines. All these different settings I can have. We're going to come back to those here in a minute. I can do my testing. So, hey, it's coming in as a popover from the top. That's good. Hey, I'm getting that weird effect on the top. Looks like it's the first time it loads on a page. I'll have to play around with that a little bit. But I can change the location. It's going to slide in from different spots as a popover. But then, as we were talking, we realized, well, this would be really nice for clients to be able to create their own alerts. Well, as soon as you start talking about clients creating their own alerts, there's a whole another level of prevention, I guess, you got to do to make sure that they're not doing crazy things. So one of the, really for a developer, we can trigger this any way we want. Like we can add it to a script. We can do a bunch of different ways to call it. Well, for our clients, none of them have developer access. None of them have full access to our files. I don't really want them creating their own scripts and calling stuff, at least our current batch of clients. If we get someone that feels up to the challenge, we'd probably let them do that. But my fear was that, well, what happens if they decided they wanted a pop-up to show up on a layout that didn't have all the popovers on it? And I wouldn't ever put all those popovers on a layout or in a file for that matter. I'd probably just put 1 or 2 locations. You want to be consistent for each user. You don't want popovers coming up all over the screen. But I did realize that there will be a need, depending on how that particular application looks. You may want top left may be the best one. Bottom right may be the best one. Who knows, depending on the application. So if I build it once, then we can just copy and paste and just kind of hide. Maybe we only give right and left, there are only 2 options, or right and top, or full, whatever. But I did realize once we got to that level, there's probably a good chance that somehow a client would set a layout object or set a layout that didn't have information. So if I pick a layout here and, oh, you know what, let's do this. I'm gonna do something here. I'm going to show it more like what a client sees without the status bar. Oh. There we go. And I'll just go back to an alert here. So if a client picks some weird, let's find one here. I don't think I have any things on the dashboard. There we go. That one didn't have any popovers on it. You'll see it comes up with a missing popover warning. And this is actually our custom dialog that pops up. The selected layout does not have a toaster alert popover. If it's not corrected, it will enter as a card and lose some functionality. And really, that's where I started thinking that we needed a second solution to be able to handle this rather than just putting popovers all over. The dev note only shows up if I'm a developer reading this versus a client. So let's do this. And I'm going to clear that. Okay, so what we ended up doing, I'll go back to our dashboard, is this layout was the one with all the popovers on. This layout, you'll see, has no popovers on it anywhere. And I can still get all the same alerts that we were doing before. You can see there's a little bit of difference in terms of the look of it. You see the white come in first and a little bit different look in terms of different things, and that just didn't work. A couple more items. We can do the single line stuff, all the same stuff that we've been doing. They're just the same alerts all the way around. So the pros and cons of doing a popover versus a card popping up. I think the popover, you don't have this little white border going around it. You can see there's a little white border, which doesn't look bad once it's fully extended, but because the card has to show first before the animation starts, I don't necessarily care for the look of the white showing right away. You can see the white comes out first and then that. So I don't necessarily care for that, but there will be cases where it's better than it not showing at all. So to me, that was kind of the compromise. What I really didn't like though about the cards, besides the look, was I did not like that the user to come up here to dismiss the card every time had to come up and dismiss it. Because to me, that kind of defeats some of the purpose of what these alerts should be. And then on the pause call, Michael Lane, it was like one of those dull moments. He's like, well, why don't you just put a layout script trigger for the keystroke and capture anytime they hit the escape key and then just close it that way? I was like, oh, that's really smart of you, man. And so it was just one of those, of course, just hit the escape key and it goes away. Well, because, and he said they do that with all their windows and their systems, their card windows that they pop up. Or I shouldn't say all, but many of them. So for us, what I decided to do, because there is no keystrokes ever on these layouts, the user can hit any keystroke. So whether it's a space bar, which I'm just hitting now, it goes away. It really doesn't matter what they hit. It's going to go away. So it makes it a little less obtrusive. Just another one of those little touches to try to make it work a little smoother for the end user. But like I said, my preference would be to use these, which I just think look a little cleaner. I can click it away by clicking off the screen and getting it to click away, which is great. So my preference is that. Now, a lot of it may depend on terms of the budget too. Like a smaller budget, it's a lot easier just to not have to put popovers anywhere and just have the cards go all over the place. One thing I did find out, these full ones, those are always going to be cards. Doing it as a popover, FileMaker has a limit that you cannot get the popover to display within 5 pixels of the top and 5 pixels of the left side. So you can't get that full screen effect. So I had to go card for both of those. But those end up actually looking really nice because I can go the full screen. I can show you. I did.
Chris, there's a few questions if you can look at the chat.
Yeah, let's fire away here. I'm not sure I can see my chat. Let me see.
Well, I asked first if do the buttons on those toaster alerts, do they run FileMaker scripts?
Yes, yes. So you're talking like when we're here, I think it was this one, couple more, that one. Yeah, so like that right button, yeah, you can run a FileMaker script out of that. I'll show you how that works, but yeah, you can run all kinds of script triggers and that out of their control thing. Correct.
Can you see the chat?
Yep, now I can. If the user anywhere but on the alert before he has finished reading, won't the alert disappear? That is true, but that is how most toaster alerts are set. Now there is a setting. So the question was, if the user clicks anywhere but on the alert before he has finished reading, won't the alert disappear? One of the settings that we built in here, you can see here, dismissal required. That will then take away, if that's on, when they click the screen, it will not dismiss. They will actually have to physically either hit the close button or one of the buttons down there to close it. So they're going to have to physically interact with it. But most toast alerts are meant to be unobtrusive. Like a couple ways that you could use them, and hopefully I got these set up. So if I come over here and just do a quick little edit of Neil Armstrong and change them back to, I think this was Vermont, I can't remember where it was when I was testing. Close it. I get a little save, and you notice that save went away. I didn't do anything. It just popped out and popped back. It's just one of those little animations. And in here, we also have, oh, you don't want to see our ticket file. You want to see our alerts. In here, you will see, we do have the ability to set a duration. Just seem like a FileMaker custom dialog or FileMaker pause resume type situation where I can set it for 2 seconds. It'll display the alert, push it back. What were some of the other ones? If you let clients make alerts, but they can't write scripts, how would the alerts get called? So Mark, that's a great question. And I will show you exactly what that is. So let me do this real quickly. I want to make sure I don't booby trap myself in here. So let's do this. I'm going to open up another window. And go back to the alerts here. That should close this out. So I'm logged in as a developer, but we have a way to kind of set myself more as like a client. So I'm just doing that. So I just turned off my client kind of privileges. You'll see when a client logs in, they don't have quite the same level of control. In ours, in the developer one, I have buttons and I have script triggers. The client only has a more limited selection of what they can do. And I'll probably hide the JSON. Who knows, maybe we'll leave that on for them. But the client only has this, and that's intentional. That they don't have quite as many options as they can have. But so for here, I did build this in so a client can come in and say, hey, what does it look like when the right and left is on? Or if I just want to hide the single lines, okay, that's where all my alerts are going to show up. So I know what to do. Or hide the multi-lines, that's where they're going to show up. Or if I want to say display the full top or display top and bottom, and maybe just so they can get an idea of where things show up on the screen for them, to give them a little bit of UI. But to Mark's question, Mark asked, how does a client, if they can't access it from a script, do something? And so let's say, Mark, they say on section, let's go section 4, and I don't know if I have any. So they would have to know the layout names. I would probably, this is a, just so you know, everyone knows, this is actually a card window popping up in a card window that uses virtual list. So we gather all the layouts with a custom function that we have. We have a naming convention. We don't, it's not, I don't even know if it's convention, but it just tends to be most of our client facing UI layouts have two words in them versus our developer ones are just usually the table name. So, but there are exceptions, so like splash screen. So we built a custom function that we can include or exclude different layouts, and it all allows all the layouts that an end user would see. And I'd probably hide a lot of these too if I was actually, if this was ready to go on for a client. But they come on here, and then Mark, what they do is they say what recipients do they want to receive it. So in this case, I want, you know what, we're just gonna make a new alert here and do this. Oh no, we can do that. We'll just keep it here. Just remember, this isn't gonna be a cool alert. It's just gonna say what is new in this alert, different. But I'm gonna turn it on for me. I'm logged in as myself right now. And we'll close this one here. I'm actually gonna turn back on myself as a developer, just so when we need to, I don't forget. Okay, so now I should be logged in back as a developer. And then when I go to section 4, you'll see it automatically goes out and finds that alert. So it has just found that alert for me. So it's really easy for an admin to control where they want the alerts to show up and when they want them to show up. And now you'll see here, when I come back into that alert, it shows that I viewed it at 4:17, that it's been cleared by me, which means I removed it. Now, if I want to show it to them again, I can turn that on and they get a little dialogue. Yes, I want to restore it, but this time I'm going to say display again till checked. And oh, I get a warning right away. So what's wrong with that? So I noticed that this showed up red and this showed up red right away. And if I go to save it, I get a dialogue about what. But when I look at the alert, you can see I have things that kind of overlap. So we built in some validation to help an end user do it. And you can see my middle one's highlighted. Should not be on if displayed again is checked. So I turn that one off. My reds all go away. I'm able to do that to kind of control things a little better. But now back to here. So I've queued it. We're good. So now this time when I come to section 4, it's there. I'm going to clear it. Let's go to company. Oh, this is the ones I've added on the company one. Some new items for the company. I'm going to go back to section 4, and you'll see it shows up again because it did not. Now, if I clear it and come back to section 4, I don't get the alert anymore because I've cleared the alert from the system. I don't get to see it again, or don't need to. And the admin, if they're coming in saying, hey, who saw this alert? They can come in here, view it. And what it does is it shows my last viewed time. It shows that it's cleared, but it also shows me in my tooltip all the times that I actually viewed that alert. So I viewed it 3 times in that alert. I viewed it at 10:31, 10:32, and 10:33. So it gives the end user or the admin a little control to say, hey, did he actually clear that? Did he see that alert? And a little bit of validation with that. So, but I could come in, if a test Conger needed, I could control who's going to see that alert and do all kinds of different things with that. So that's kind of how that works.
So for for the users to make their own alerts, it's all based on layout enters when they come to layouts, right?
Either layout, or the other option is the display on file. So the display on file open would be probably the one that's most likely. And actually, let me open up FileMaker 17 here, because I know that I have one in here. So let's open up 17 here for me. And if I go to our template file, so I have a display on open one. Let's see if I can, before I log in, see if I can. This, I think I have to do a little bit better job of giving them a way to function, but you can see in this one, I'm turned on here, Chris Conger. You can see I tested it early this morning at 1:40, but it's display on file. It is turned on, and also display again till checked is turned on. So now when I log into this on FileMaker 17, it'll open up my screen, come in and say, hey, the system will be down for routine maintenance, please contact. And so that will continue to show until the user decides not to see it. Let's close 17 now, because we no longer need 17 at all. So those are the two options for, at this time, for a client to use. One would be for on a layout, and one would be for entering into the on client or on file open. And what was really fun about this, so you can just come in here, and I'm sorry, I have my computer, I have my sound muted, but we did have one that had a beep on, that when it shows up, it beeps, just to even draw more attention to it if needed. We have, so let's do this. So this is where I come in and I can set it to right, top, left, bottom right, bottom left, top, full, top and full, and get that. I can do my type, my icon, whether I want it to be a single line or a double line, or multi-line or a single line. Single line, I don't have an option of a title. It's just the single line is all it is. The multi-line, I would have an option for a title. You know what, let's do this. Rather than muck up this one, let's go back to, this one was top full. Let's just create a new one here.
So since I know you can multitask, I'll ask you while you're typing. So the card window's modal, right? The user can't click back into the main window while the card is on.
Correct. So that's why they have to hit the escape. That was one of the negatives of the card window versus the popover. Now, if you have the popover on the layouts, then it can easily, then they don't have that card modal issue.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a big advantage to being, because usually those things that fly in like that, you can still keep working while they come on, right?
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, there are some things that's not perfect replication of it, and so we can start tweaking our little layout here, using this info to control what we want to control. But we'll come here and we'll say, hey, let's enter from the right. We'll make this one an informational one. Actually, let's do a success. Let's show the CAFTA logo. And we're good to go. And then I can determine when I want to display it, whether dismissal is required or not. Display again till checked. So that turns that on and off. Pause script after open. I'm actually going to take that out. I don't think that is a good use case, because I'll show you why, what we've added since then. I have this, and you can see right here, well, I have an issue. Dismissal required is set to true, but I've just hit the close button. So in that case, it won't let me do it unless I have a button to show. Once I put, like if I put a right button on here, and we'll just call it right button. Now I should, if it's working, you can see now I have a way to dismiss that modal and we're good. But Phil, to your question earlier, yeah, I can add any scripts I want to it. You can see here, only developers have access to buttons, and only developers have access to scripts. to the script triggers. I don't feel comfortable enough with our users doing it. Now, we may add a script or two that they can tweak or modify, then we may turn on the script triggers to make it work. But in there, the script name, just using design functions to get the list of script names that are currently active. Obviously, if you change a script name in this, it's not going to update. That is something to be cautious of. But if I wanted to, I don't know, no idea, show custom dialog or something like that, or whatever we want to do. And then you can type in your parameters just right here. And all I'm using is I have the script triggers. I have on the button when it's clicked, it'll run it, script by name, and then pass in the parameters. So this script stuff can definitely be powerful as a developer, but I'm a little leery to do it. We've also built in the script triggers similar to Toaster and some of the other ones have before open. And when it's on, it's just the same two things: after open, before close, and after close. So we do have 4 different script triggers that we can fire along with it. And the cool thing about it, let me just turn on another, one button will be enough because we have that. The cool thing about it is all this whole thing doing, this whole setup is really just building a JSON object. So it's building this JSON object. This is just gonna copy the JSON to my clipboard. And it opens up just a JSON parser. Oops. You can see the little modal dialog for success that we copied it. Yay. And you can see it just copying, it's creating this JSON object with all kinds of different things. So I have my buttons in here, the details of the buttons that I need to be able to do, the message, the script triggers, they're all in here. So I had the different script triggers that we would do, put stuff in there, the sound beat, the style, the title. So everything's just a JSON object. And then all we do is, for instance, when a user's using it, when they go to this layout, all it goes out and does is look for, well, they're alert line items. They're basically these records. It's looking for these records with the script name, and we did do a little or the layout name. We did do some trapping for the layout name, so you can modify the layout name. It first looks for the exact match of the name. If that doesn't find an exact match of the name from go to layout by name, then we've also captured, when I set the layout to display, I've captured the layout ID, and then it will go to the layout by ID. There's different use cases for it, but that's kind of the order. By name first. If it doesn't match by name, do ID. I suppose I probably could do the way FileMaker does some of their stuff where it's name and ID first, and then just name and then ID, but I just chose just to go name first and then ID. So all it's doing is it's running a script. When I go to company, it's saying, okay, show me any alert line items for this layout for Chris Conger. Well, we have this one here and we're good to go. But sometimes one of the cool things about toaster alerts is you can stack them on top of each other, right? And get multiple toast alerts. Let's turn this off again. You can get multiple toast alerts, and that's one of the cool things. So let's do this, and let's go alerts, and I'm gonna create a new one. And this is the and we're going to do that one on the right also, because that's what it is. We'll just say, hey, and we're going to add that to our company one. And assign it to me again this, like I said, this wasn't initially intended to be done for the client. This was more for us building stuff, but I probably need to build some sort of wizard step by step, a little cleaner for an end user if we're going to let them do it. But now I have, and let's do this display till again till check so we can see that as well. But now when I go to company, I actually have 2 alerts set up there. Now I'm not able to do the stacking method where you can see multiple at a time. I mean, I suppose you could probably work and and get to that point. But because I only have a single popover, and you can see then this is the second alert that came out. So you can get the effect of having multiple alerts show up at one time. They just don't stack the way that they do in true JavaScript systems that are done on the web. And there's definitely some compromises. It's not exactly like it, but it is all native FileMaker. There's no JavaScript in here. We did discuss a little internally about doing this with JavaScript and a web viewer. I'm not an expert in those things or do a lot in those things, but Steve Winter is very good in those things, and his recommendation was to stay with the native FileMaker. He just felt like you could run into issues with the look and the transparency of the web. Like there is some transparency here, like there is on Toaster alerts. You would lose that with a web viewer, and you would just possibly struggle with the web viewer drawing and different things like that. This I have a lot more control over it. So we went this way. We may play around with the JavaScript here in the near future, but we'll have to see on that. So let's see if there's any other questions. Yeah, so
I had a lot of questions in there, and I think you answered them when you showed the JSON object. But
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Jeff, are the positions of the elements within the alert simply the do not display when setting?
So I have a question. I'm not really clear on the JSON. So once you've got this stored as JSON, then when this trigger happens, you've got to unpack that JSON and run a script, run a FileMaker script to make this happen. Yes.
So let me show you
the JSON
scripts. So this is our check for alert script, and I know we all code differently, but basically it's either on first window open or on layout load, and it's just checking to see if I have any layout alert IDs for that person. So that's real simple.
I don't think we're seeing it
all
yet.
that. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Dangers of working with multiple monitors. Can you see it now?
There we go.
So all we're doing here is the check for alert script. Hey, on first window open, check to see if there's any alert IDs for that person, or on layout load. And so then we're grabbing those things and kind of packaging them up. If there are alert IDs, then we run this manage alert display, which all this does is, we'll skip down to here. It gathers the alert JSON. So I passed it in an alert ID, and it will go out and grab that JSON package for that particular alert ID. And then this is where it opens the Toaster alert and does a bunch of things in here to kind of control everything and manage everything. I didn't show this, but one of the things I did discover, which was kind of, once I saw it, I understand why it happens. It was just disappointing. So one of the cool things that we thought we were going to be able to do, and we still were able to pull it off, but I thought we were going to be able to keep the FileMaker styling. So if the client was doing this and they went like this and they just styled it with bold, and even if they made it, I mean, the red's going to look ugly, but let's see if we can find a red that shows up well on green. I don't think we're going to find one. You can see it can actually show up right in here as well. Well, when you pack it with JSON or even pass it as a script parameter, that goes away. You lose the styling because it's just text, right? JSON's just text, so you lose however FileMaker's doing it behind the scenes, whether it's CSS or whatever, you lose that part of it. Even the get as CSS, I tried using it. Well, then you're talking about an HTML element, and it wasn't something at least I could pull off. Maybe someone else knows a better way to do it. So what we do have to do is go grab the message body and the title body, because that's where they can style it. And I'll grab those and set those in global variables. So that allows us to keep this. So where's this one showing? This is the alert icon. This is the the left. So you'll see now when I come over here and show this left one, it has kept all the styling in there, which was a nice little add, but you do have to do that in global variables. You cannot. So I did catch that. That was one of those things that kind of tripped me up for a while. So that's why you see a lot more global variables. But once it's displayed, once we unpack the JSON, we do store those things in global variables and then delete all the global variables once it's removed, rather than using a JSON object to one single JSON global variable. That would be another way to do it. I just chose to put in a bunch of individual and break it all out. So this is where it gets all unpacked, and then we do it. And then when it closes, let's see, manage, delete once in this script right here. When it closes, the very last thing it does is it checks to see if there's another alert in the stack of IDs that I've grabbed. So if I've gone to a layout that has two things, the very last thing it does is check to see if there's another alert, and then if it is, it just runs that other alert. And oh, here it is, the toaster. If not as empty, toaster alert, line item Q, then set this variable to the next value and manage the display and run it all over again. So let's see some of these questions. Do alerts show only when a user changes, loads, layouts, or do they show whenever an alert is generated? So Patrick, that's a great question, and that kind of goes, one of the other feedbacks that I got from the pause was from Sully here, who's on the call. And Sully's like, well, can we make this like almost like a messaging system back and forth to people? Which it's not far off, but then my first thought was we'd have to do it with a on-timer script trigger just to check it. But then Sully was like, well, why don't you just use open up a window off screen that only has, in the table that only has one record on it with a script trigger on it for on-record load. When there is a new alert added on the server, delete the record and then create a new record, which would create a new on-load script trigger that you could do it. So you could, Patrick, your thing, that may be the next steps. We haven't discussed it, how we're going to use it. Part of me thinks, well, if you're building a messaging system, maybe you're better off just doing it in Slack and doing integration with Slack or some of the other tools that are out there. But I do see that we're doing file, maybe really nice if I'm sitting on a record of someone that, I don't know, whoever, I could create an alert, assign it to a person, and say, please call this person with a snapshot link in it even, that could take them right to that person. So we got to think about it more, but the ability to have that link inside of there too, and that when they click the buttons that we've assigned, it takes them to that snapshot link, I think could be pretty powerful. So it's definitely an option of how you want to do it.
Right. One of the other methods that Josh Ormond mentioned for generating an alert that happens when you send it, rather than when somebody clicks a layout or hits a script of some kind, is to use a separate file. And that does help a little bit as far as making sure that all the windows are closed. You have to be careful with that. If you have if you have an off-screen window, you're never really sure if it's closed, as well as if you have just a separate file. So that's just another suggestion that might help out with that.
So explain, the advantage of doing it that way is you know that window is, because you can check files open, or?
Right. Well, sometimes when you open or you close a file, or you open another window, it might just appear in the system tray, or it might appear in your toolbar that it's open. And most users, if there's a window that's off screen, they think just by clicking the X in the top corner of FileMaker, it's going to close all of FileMaker. It doesn't really close all the windows, because there's one window that's off screen, and then you get users that are like, well, I thought I closed FileMaker, but it's not really closed. Mm-hmm. So you still have somebody logged in at the end of the day when you're trying to work on the system, and you can't log everybody out. It just creates a lot of extra issues. So it's easier just to have a separate file. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And just on your, I guess you wouldn't have a post step. Yeah. That makes sense.
Right. FileMaker's not really set up natively to do interactive messaging like that. It's not meant to be conversational. So doing it with another system is probably the preferred method if you're trying to go from one FileMaker user to another user that's on the same database. But there's other ways to do it. I mean, even just getting something to pop up in a portal on somebody's screen if they haven't done anything, teasing FileMaker to repaint the screen can be very difficult. So I don't want to totally derail the conversation in that direction, but
it's great. You got so much out of pause discussion.
Right.
The use case we have is we have a client that gets text messages that are through Twilio that come in the FileMaker, and they would like if they could get a notification when they're working in FileMaker that a new text message has been received, that then they could go over and look at the text messages.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the use case that I'm looking at this and thinking it might work for.
Yeah, you and I should hook up after this meeting and talk about that more. It's one of the most difficult things that you can do with inbound messaging is trying to get them to display automatically. So there's a couple of methods you can use for it. If you have a window open that has all of your messages listed and it's just a list view, the easiest way to do it is just to delete a record in a daughter table and have it resort the new message up to the top of the list. If you're trying to use a portal on a conversational layout, then you have to use the script I use for that is like 60 or 70 lines of just random attempts at maybe if I try this, maybe if I try that. So it's not easy to get it to work, and getting it to work on all of your devices, and it can be quite daunting. So
that's what we found so far.
So
yeah,
I think
it's difficult.
You have to talk.
Yeah.
Phil?
What time?
I think Sully wants to do another CAFTA talk at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I just
Right. Go a little bit more in depth on some of the new things that I've learned how to do with Twilio since was that last April? I was going to say this. It's probably been about a year. I could do an update. So I am doing I'm doing one for the Indianapolis group at the beginning of May. So Kevin Hammond invited me to speak, and then all of this stuff kind of fell apart. I was supposed to go to Pause on Error and then drive to Champaign to visit some friends, and then drive to Indianapolis, and then come back to CAFTA the next day, and everything just kind of blew up. So the Mandelbrot World Tour kind of stopped short, but yeah. But yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of open spots for that meeting if you wanted to have a little bit more information that way. That we would not have to do both, but I'd be happy to present if you guys want to do an update.
That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That tripped me up, besides the formatting of text, was the window height. So this is a card window that opens up. My thought on these sliders, the full screen one was, let me just do this. My thought was all I was going to have to do, I thought it was going to be really simple, right? So the first thing you get, and there's some manipulation when you're doing it, cards and stuff like that we've handled pretty well with other systems that we've done. But I thought I was going to be able to just use one layout that was the height I wanted, and then that I could then, why is that not showing? There we go. I could just use the anchors and stretch it, and then set the window width to the width of the window that had called it. So store the width of the window that had called it, open this up, position it at the bottom of the window that had called it, and then use the anchors to stretch it out. Well, I'm not sure why. I'm sure there's a reason why, but I did not realize in FileMaker, when you use move or resize window, the minimum height it can go to is 144. Or when you open a new window, it's 144. I knew that when you open a window it was 144. But the move or resize could only go, the minimum was 144. So I couldn't set it to 60. So then I was like, oh, I'll just adjust the height of it and use adjust or whatever it is. Adjust windows, resize to, what's the script step? Adjust window, resize to height, or I can't remember what's the script step. Yeah, it's resize to fit. So I was like, oh, I'll resize it to fit. Well, the problem with that is then it obviously shrinks the width back down to this level. And then when I make it width again, make it wide again, well, then it reverts back to being 144 tall. So you can see that kind of in display here. If I monkey with this, if I make this window a little shorter, actually, a little wider here first. What I had to do was go to 144 because what would happen otherwise is the alert would be here, and then this would be a big gray bar down the bottom, which was really frustrating. And I'd love to know if someone knows a way around this because I don't like it. So what we ended up having to do is we had to kind of compromise. So we use a couple standard window widths. So what I did was I have a width of 1440, a width of 1075 that I do not have to use the window resize. I can just use the adjust window and resize to fit. And that's what you're seeing here. So when I go bottom full, that's a card that shows up and goes like that. If I go smaller, what we've decided to do is the full 144 was just too wide. So we just default to, that's what the size it becomes when you do the adjust window. So if I was on a smaller window that I do not have a predefined width already for, so what we do is we capture the width of the window that we're starting at, check to see if we have a layout that handles that specific width. And for us, we use pretty standard widths, so it's probably going to work for us. But if someone has a lot of different widths for their layouts, the full bottom is going to be a lot tougher to do unless you are willing to accept a super wide one, which I think it looks really poor unless you had a really huge screen. But it looks, all that extra space just kind of messes with my mind a little too much to be willing to accept. So if anyone knows a way around that, being able to get be able to size a window as wide as you want and a height of under 144, I would love to know, and make it dynamic. So, oh, Paul, might it be possible to trigger the check for alert? Yeah, so Paul made a suggestion of on layout keystroke to trigger the check for alerts. You could, but I don't think you want every keystroke someone's typing into the system to be going out and checking for alerts. And then I have a suggestion for the top and bottom alerts. Paul, is this you, Paul Costanzo, with the suggestion, or is this a different Paul?
No, that's me.
Okay.
I did have a go at this some time back, and instead of using a window, I just put the slider directly on the layout and used, a hide command based on whether it had a message to show.
Correct. Yes, and that is definitely another way to do it. Yes, that would be another way to do it, is to add the slider to the layout, open it up to. When it's hidden, control which layout, which slider panel it's going to? Do you have to show it first before you can go to an object?
Yeah, I guess you just have a blank one, don't you? And it slides in like that. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So I like the animation. And that's bringing it on a blank one and then sliding. But that's a really good suggestion. I might play around with that a little bit.
It feels a little bit more lightweight as well.
Yeah. No, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. But then again, you're back to that popover conundrum of you have to put it on every layer.
Yeah.
Is just allowing. So there's trade-offs to every way that you want to do it, but I think that's a really neat suggestion. I will definitely try to see what I can work out into that and put that in my note.
We just need our reusable layout parts, don't we?
Yes, that would solve a lot of this.
Yes, please. That would be great.
Yeah. Any other feedback? Any other things that you guys would do differently or like to see differently or break down?
Hard to come up with anything considering how extensive you've done this. When the topic was first announced, I thought, oh, cool little thing, but you've turned this into an amazing full-featured feature. It's really impressive.
Well, thank you, Mark. Saline, thank you for the inspiration. Maka or Ross, whoever did that, that was kind of the thing that got me over the point.
Having an interface to build the JSON is very cool.
Yeah, that was fun. A way to do it, and yeah, I enjoyed doing it that way.
If nobody else has any questions for Chris, I just want to take a moment to thank Chris for presenting this to us. You're getting a virtual clap from everybody.
Thank you.
There are a few. So thanks, Chris, for taking your time to put this together and for taking the time to present it. And I want to thank everybody who attended. Really appreciate people showing up for this and keeping us together even when we can't be together. Our next meeting will be May 1st. I'm perfectly willing to stick around another 15 minutes if anybody has any questions in general about FileMaker or anything else. You've got some people to ask.